financial and geopolitical from the frontier. Thank you for stopping by. We've uploaded a piece of the Mindspeak session, and this was the presentation by Habil Olaka, the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Bankers Association. He made a 15 to 20 minute intervention about the banking sector. If you get a chance, do take a look. Home Thoughts, San Christophe Foretti, hello Nairobi, snapped this photo a couple of months ago. I hope you were smiling. And it's a pretty fancy photograph of Nairobi from space. I was very young and lived with my grandparents in a villa with white walls in the Calle Ocharan in Miraflores. Mario Vargas Llosa ordered some books. I haven't received them yet. My favorite quote of his is, "Memory is a snare, pure and simple. It alters, it subtly rearranges the past to fit the present." A family's 2 pet dogs refused to leave the side of a terminally ill baby girl as she lay dying. And it took me back. We've always had dogs. My grandfather had a dachshund called Jackie. And he used to visit my grandmother's grave practically every day. And Jackie would run into the grave first and get very cross with the caretaker if the grave was not clean. When my grandfather passed away, Jackie used to like going for drives. My grandfather had an old Peugeot 504, and the dog would be at the back on the ledge with the breeze coming through the back window. And it was quite a sight, actually. And when my grandfather died, a few days after that, Jackie threw himself out of the car window and committed suicide. From there, and for no good reason, I came across this tweet from Mashable. This 1994 Pulp Fiction document reveals why British censors decided not to cut it. But when I went to look for some conversation, it was very difficult not to cut it because of language. "Jules, looks like me and Vincent caught you boys at breakfast. Sorry about that. What's your habit?" Brett, "Hamburgers. Jules, hamburgers, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast." Jules grabs Brett's burger and takes a bite of it. This is a tasty burger, Vincent. You ever try a big kahuna burger?" Vincent, "No. Want a bite? They're real tasty. I ain't hungry." "Well, if you like burgers, give 'em a try sometime. Me, I can't usually get 'em myself because my girlfriend's a vegetarian, which pretty much makes me a vegetarian. But I do love the taste of a good burger." You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in France?" Brett, "No. Tell 'em, Vincent." Vincent, "Royale with cheese." Jules, "Royale with cheese. You know why they call it that?" You'll have to go back, watch the trailer. The link is on the website. Political reflections. Al-Shabaab have attacked Kismayo Airport with 8 mortar shells last night. The facility houses Kenyan and Ethiopian troops. Turkish Prime Minister said to give up as Erdogan pressure is insurmountable. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu is expected to step down this month after losing a power struggle with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan that sent financial markets plunging. 2 leaders held a late-night summit on Wednesday, and neither issued an official statement after it finished. A person familiar with the matter said Davutoglu's AK party will hold a leadership contest within about 15 days, and the premier won't be a candidate. The Turkish lira slumped as much as 4.5%, its biggest decline since 2008. Erdogan continues to be the primary actor in Turkish politics, said Stephen Cook, a senior fellow for Middle East and African Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. He wanted a pliant prime minister. Davutoglu had ambitions to be his own man. But Davutoglu did not have a power base in the party. Essentially, Erdogan brooks no competition. Obviously, Davutoglu wasn't prepared to toe the line. Let me put up a photograph of Erdogan and his 3 million square foot, 1,000 rooms, $615 million palace. And then this is the photograph of the meeting held last night. You'll see President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on the left and the Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu during their long meeting in Ankara. The departure of Davutoglu would allow Erdogan to distance himself from some of his failed policies that can be attributed to Davutoglu. So it remains a volatile mix, but the Sultan is very much the man in charge. Baiting the bear, Russia and NATO by Konhalinan. Instead, an April 20th meeting between NATO ministers and Russia ended in profound disagreements, according to alliance head Jens Stoltenberg, Russian ambassador to NATO. Alexander Garushko said that the continued deployment of armed forces on its borders makes it impossible to have a meaningful dialogue. And I just conclude by saying, Russia is an irrelevant challenge, notwithstanding the fact of some giant gains in military power projection. That aside, it's an irrelevant challenge to the US, in my opinion, when compared to China's challenge. Currency markets have been all over the place. The euro is back at 114.40. Remember, 114.55 is the key area through which we spiked, but we're now back below it. Dollar index above 93. 93 is the key pivot area. The Japanese yen 107.38, backing up a little. Swissy 0.9584. The pound 145.12. The Aussie is at 0.7484. India rupee 66.515. South Korean won 1164.05. The Rial 354.89. Egyptian pound 8.8766. And the South African rand, when I looked last, 14.84, backed up a little. According to David Inglis, who's very useful when it comes to Asian markets, you must follow him on Twitter, the dollar yen has only moved down this violently twice in the last 8 years. Have a look at what he's saying. Bullish dollar bets are fading. Have a look at this image that I found on Bloomberg. You can see that longs have been squeezed out of position now. But as I said, the key area remains 93. And if we can get above it meaningfully, it means the bull market is intact, and that was a false breakdown. If we can't, then we could see a further sell-off in the dollar. Commodity markets, you remember gold topped 1,300 twice, I think, this week. We're now at 1276.75. Oil jumps on Canadian wildfire, Libyan fighting, very big rebound in oil. US crude oil $45.43 trading right now. It went up big yesterday, fell down into negative territory, then this news broke and it came back up again. I'll put up a 5-day chart, you can see what I'm talking about. Moving on to sub-Saharan Africa, conflict. Is Rwanda stirring rebellion in Burundi? This is an article in IRIN. The DRC accuses neighboring Rwanda of recruiting M23 rebels to help oust Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza, adding a worrying international dimension to an already incendiary crisis. Congolese government spokesman Lambert Mende Omalanga alleges that Rwanda has been paying ex-M23 fighters exiled in Rwanda and Uganda to join Burundian opposition forces and help topple the government in Bujumbura. That's probably going to be a bone of contention. Barclays, this is the big financial news in Africa, has sold a 12.2% stake in its African unit for $879 million. 1/5 of its stake in Barclays Africa Group. Bank sold 12.2% to money managers, leaving it with a holding of 50.1%. Shares were bought for 126 Rand each, a discount of about 11% to the average price over the past 30 days. This represents an initial step towards delivering management's previously stated strategy to sell down its stake in Barclays Africa Group to a level that will permit regulatory deconsolidation over the next 2 or 3 years. Shares in Barclays Africa fell as much as 4.2%, and a close at this current level will be the lowest since April the 7th. Given the size of the placement, the price seems about right. Prior to that, there was another report on Bloomberg talking about Bob Diamond seeking to prep a bid, but that South Africa's central bank was not comfortable with private equity companies owning stakes in the country's lenders. The comments come as Bob Diamond pulls together a group of investors, including US private equity giant Carlyle, for a potential bid for Barclays' controlling stake in the African business. Representatives from Atlas Mara held meetings with the Reserve Bank on Tuesday, according to reception records of the Pretoria-based regulator. South Africa's EFF party was ejected from parliament ahead of the Zuma address, but they're proving highly effective. Their asymmetric political responses to President Zuma. We've seen some of an attempt by the opposition here to do the same thing. I made a comment about that, in particular when the President's State of the Union address was interfered with. And I got some criticism for drawing that parallel, but I think clearly that's what the opposition are following in Kenya. But the problem is, I don't think President Kenyatta has President Zuma by a long stretch of the imagination. South African all share plus 1.5% this year. Dollar rand, very rich, wasn't it, when it was close to 14 the figure, back closer to 15 the figure. Dollar shortage leaves ATMs empty, Zimbabweans without cash. Of course, they abandoned their currency in 2009 because of hyperinflation, but having limited withdrawals and shutdowns on ATMs as the country's ailing economy causes dollar supplies to evaporate, threatening to result in company failures. The problem is related to Zimbabwe's balance of payments. We're importing more than we're exporting, and we can't print money because we use mainly the US dollar. Zimbabwe will limit daily cash withdrawals from banks to $1,000 and also slash the amount of cash individuals can take out of the country. And then apparently, breaking news, Zim is to introduce bond notes as cash shortages bite. Local bond notes. The RBZ governor did not give a specific date for the introduction of the bond notes, but only said this will be in over 2 months' time. Egyptian EGX 30 is up 6.23% this year. Nigerian capital imports plunged 74% in the first quarter. That's the stats office, and obviously that's because of the restriction on FX. Total value of capital imported into Nigeria in the first quarter plunged to $710.97 million, a 73.79% decline from the same quarter a year ago. Nigerian all share is down 10.22%. Ghana Stock Exchange down 8.45%. Very interesting video clip from NTV Kenya, how Chase Bank was looted by its former chairman and his accomplices. Have a look at that, and this is what I wrote on the 18th of April. You will recall, got me into a bit of trouble. Chase Bank and the story of the three wise monkeys, Mizaru, Kikezaru, and Iwazaru. Chase Bank was the 11th largest at the time. It was placed into receivership on April 7th, shortly after announcing restated earnings with a qualified audit opinion, that was Deloitte, which was deliberately miniaturized in the restated earnings release. Mr. Kabui said in his statement to the police that the so-called insider loans were assets held in Chase Iman's joint ventures, financed under Musharaka. The pertinent question to ask Mr. Kabui and his board is when these assets were classified as Musharaka. The entire tale that has been spun took me back to the story of the three wise monkeys. Together, they embody the proverbial principle, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. The three monkeys are Mizaru, covering his eyes, who sees no evil, Kikezaru, covering his ears, who hears no evil, and Iwazaru, covering his mouth, who speaks no evil. You have to ask yourself, what is the duty of a board? Was there a functioning board at Chase Bank or even at Imperial Bank, or just a Mizaru, a Kikazaru, and an Iwazaru? Where was the credit committee dishing out 84.96% of your core capital on an unsecured basis to an insider has to surely pass through some kind of process? Because if it didn't, then as Patrick Girogi said, Chase Bank was a mama boga, not a bank. Truth is that the last line of defense is the external auditor, Deloitte, to be commended for calling a spade a spade. I said, the calculation has entirely changed for audit companies the world over. KPMG threw the Guptas over because of the reputational risk. Deloitte could not put their name to a cockamamie. Cockamamie means ridiculous, pointless, nonsensical, full of wild schemes and cockamamie ideas story. Listen to that YouTube link, it explains a lot. Death toll in Kenyan building collapse rises to 26, entirely unfortunate and a consequence of corrupt practices, frankly. DTB raises stake in Uganda unit with 1.1 billion shilling cash injection. They did it by participating in DTB Uganda's rights issue in April. DTB obviously have upticked their shareholding, was previously 56.97%. Diamond Trust is up 7.486% year to date, trades on a trailing PE of 8.23. Forex reserves hit 770 billion shillings to boost the value of the Kenya shilling, $7.62 billion as of April 22nd, amounting to 4.96 months of import cover. This is an increase of 7.7% from 7.07 billion, amounting to 4.5 months of import cover at the same period last year. CBK Governor Patrick Girogi recently said lower prices, a falling current account deficit, and more exports has contributed to the higher level of reserves. There is the impact of lower oil prices that have improved the balance of payments. We see the current account deficit this year closing at 8%. Inflows from tourism and exports like tea and horticulture are strengthening. There are also portfolio inflows. Investors are attracted to invest long term because of the favourable environment. I spoke about this on the 8th of February when I talked about the trend change in the perennial current account deficit. Between 2011 and 2015, Kenya's annual fossil fuel import bill was running at about 350 billion shillings. With oil at $30 a barrel, a bit higher than that, this could drop to 115 billion in 2016. Kenya shilling 100.54, a 9-month high, and indeed Teflon. Nairobi All-Share Index up 0.01% this year. NSE 20 Index down 1.26% this year. Safaricom to report full year earnings in 6 days' time. These results will set the tone for the Nairobi indices. I expect an earnings surprise to the upside. Safaricom ticked 0.29% easier to close at 1690. Kenya Bureau of Statistics reported that total visitors to Kenya dropped 12.6% to 1.18 million. And this led TPS Serena a whopping 6.52% lower to close at a multi-year closing low of 2150. NIC Bank reported first quarter earnings, which was slightly down, not very much, increased its loan loss provision to 1.31 billion from 0.42 billion previously, and I think that explains a lot of why the earnings were crimped. Finally, Crown Paints has rallied 10% over 2 sessions since releasing its full year earnings. And remember, if you ever want to track the Kenyan stock market in real time, just log on to rich.co.ke, register. It's free, get a password, use that password to go to Rich Live. You can watch the market all to your heart's desire. Thank you for stopping by.